Lisa Su has made a name for herself as an industry leader who is pursuing cutting-edge technologies that change the world.
Thanks for providing those insights.
Congratulations for Keynote in this year in AMD, and also for all the success of AMD.
Really, really thankful for our partnership.
And AMD has been an amazing partner through all this.
Lenovo has some of the best solutions with AMD products. Well, look, first, congratulations.
I'm super grateful that we have AMD with us.
You know how much I love Windows, how much I love working on these products.
This is an actual benchmark we did of AMD's keynote, where we manually counted the time spent on each major topic in the presentation. So that was impressive. AMD's CES keynote was actually the most boring keynote I have ever had to suffer through. Really impressively boring. I thought that seeing executives pull guests onto stage in person was awkward, but doing it remotely and then pre-recording it all and then cutting it later, that was bad. So AMD, if you missed the CES keynote, there were actual products announced and discussed. You might have missed it because they were hidden in between all of the various layers of executives from companies getting each other off over their products and how much they appreciate each other. It was 1 hour of companies saying thank you, tell me about why you like my product. Literally, that was the phrasing. It was, can you tell me a little bit more about how you use AMD? So anyway, there were products we're gonna talk about. We're gonna help you cut through the bullshit. There was a lot of it. There is some interesting stuff, but it was a total waste of time. Don't bother with the keynote. We got more info from a PDF. Before that, this video is brought to you by Arctic Cooling and its Liquid Freezer 2 line. Arctic is actively restocking its Liquid Freezer 2 coolers that rank among the top performers for CPU coolers right now, including on Ryzen CPUs. The Liquid Freezer 2 series is focused on high thermal performance and value, featuring a blackout design and including a VRM fan mounted on top of the pump block to help provide airflow over neighboring VRM heatsinks. Arctic has also started selling its P12 120 case fans. Learn more at the links in the description below. So to recap the keynote, AMD first spent exactly 22 minutes talking about the pandemic, how it's caused people to work from home, and recapping a bunch of other stuff that we've all spent the last year being aware of ourselves without needing another recap in the start of the next year. And then it reminded everyone about a bunch of stats like the trillions of minutes spent watching Zoom meetings or something. And it also said that gamers want desktop performance in a notebook. As we all know, gamers are an elusive species, but they in fact all think the same way and want the same thing. So AMD's got that figured out. So here's that benchmark slide again. AMD spent 5 seconds slipping past that it'd be launching new GPUs in 2021. Further burying the RTG team, and it then spent 3 minutes and 19 seconds dedicated to actual naming, actual spec detailing, and actual performance discussion for its seminal new mobile CPUs. More on this later though. Everything else surrounding those actually useful segments consisted of things like mutual self-congratulation between executives, tone-deaf talking about how great the pandemic has been for sales and AMD, or weighing in at a staggering 16 minutes, generic, pointless filler videos, words, throwbacks to known information, or otherwise unusable drivel so pointless in form that it might start rolling away. We did this for Intel previously, where it had trouble remembering its own CPU names, but it seems that AMD hasn't learned from its peers, and it's wasting everyone's time in public events, just like Intel did previously. Before anyone says, by the way, what did you expect of our beloved AMD at the Consumer Electronics Show, this is for investors. We'll remind you that 1, no it's not, and 2, in years past, it has had actual announcements that were far more tightly put together. Other than spending the first 22 minutes plus actually a following maybe 10 to 20 minutes talking about how everybody's working from home, everyone needs high-powered computers for home, everybody needs desktops for home, AMD then went to announce its mobile processors for portability. So maybe not the best segue there, but whatever, we'll go through them. So the most interesting thing was unfortunately not actually detailed in the extremely boring presentation, which was Ryzen 5900 and 5800 non-X CPUs. So this was teased to us in press documentation, but it was with very limited info. We were basically told the keynote is gonna have the bulk of the information. Here's a quick PDF with some stats. And the Keynote had 0 information. The PDF had a lot more. Unfortunately, the desktop parts not really on there. But there are 2 new desktop parts. They are OEM only. That means it's going to be Dell and HP. You'll probably find them on AliExpress in the future. They're not supposed to be sold standalone via Newegg, Amazon, whatever. So not traditional DIY parts, but they are socketable single CPUs that you could feasibly get through some other source, if not through an OEM directly. So those SKUs are going to be a Ryzen 9 5900 non-X and a Ryzen 7 5800 non-X. Presumably, this is the start of hopefully some other 5000 series CPUs that are a bit cheaper. So the non-X 5600 will potentially be noteworthy if in fact one exists. We would assume AMD will go back after the $200 market. It's dominated there for 3 years now, going on 4 actually, and it's not going to give that market up. It's just going to be a while they get together the supply to meet the $200 price point again. So anyway, 5900 and 5800 non-X is an indicator that there's going to be more 5000 series SKUs hopefully coming out in the next couple months. AMD also talked about 3rd gen AMD Epyc Milan processors. It showed a quick demo for that. Not a whole lot of specs or anything really to talk about other than core count, which is mostly stuff we've heard before. AMD Threadripper Pro had some updates. It's not 5000 series Threadripper, so we're going to skip it. But we've covered Pro before as well. So Threadripper 5000 might eventually happen. It wasn't today. And then other than that, it was Ryzen Mobile. So let's go over that quickly. In between talking with Lewis Hamilton.
Hey, one of the things I know about you is that you love gaming, and AMD loves gaming too. In fact, I heard you might be having some fun in your downtime with your new AMD-powered Sony PlayStation 5.
The HP guy, the Lenovo guy, and a bunch of other executives who all told each other how great they are. AMD's heaviest emphasis was on its Ryzen mobile CPUs. This is where we spend the least coverage time normally because it's outside of our focus area, but we'll go ahead and spend the most of it here since it's the only thing to talk about. The Ryzen 5000 mobile CPUs are monolithic and include 2 categories. There's the H lineup for higher performance notebooks, and then the U lineup for thin and light notebooks with a focus on battery life. AMD's SKU list includes 13 mobile CPUs in these 2 classes, all of which are on 7 nanometers and most of which are on Zen 3 architecture. The 5980HX flagship is an 8-core 16-thread part with a 4.8 gigahertz boost and 3.3 gigahertz base clock. It runs 20 megabytes of cache and a 45-watt TDP and higher. The 5980HS, the 5900HX, the 5900HS, and the 5800H, aside from attempting to encroach on Intel's territory of confusingly naming its parts, are all 8-core 16-thread parts with similar frequencies to each other, for the most part. But there are slight enough changes to manifest in a TDP drop to 35 watts. Keep in mind that AMD's TDP calculation doesn't actually feature power in the formula for the math to derive that number, but is instead about thermal resistance, ambient temperature, and TKs. Either way, the point is that some of these will be lower power parts than others, and that's the main distinction. The 5600H and 5600HS are 6-core 12-thread components with 19 megabytes of cache instead. As for the U lineup, there are 2 8-core 16-thread parts, the 5800U and 5700U, 2 6-core 12-thread parts, the 5600U and 5500U, and 1 4-core 8-thread part, the 5300U. Frequencies run significantly lower for these, especially the base frequencies, with cache between 6 megabytes and 20 megabytes at the high end. TDP is marked at 15 watts, but remains of limited usefulness. Now, as for the architecture, the R7 5700U, R5 5500U, and R3 5300U are all Zen 2, not Zen 3. This is terribly confusing, unfortunately. AMD moved to the Ryzen 5000 naming for desktop and skipped 4000 explicitly, as in it literally said this because the naming was confusing, because it was too many cross generations across desktop and mobile jointly, and it became very difficult for people to understand what it was they were researching. Between APUs, OEM-only 4000 series CPUs and APUs, mobile components, and then what was going to be Zen 3. It became 5000 series. So AMD fixed it and has immediately started muddying it again, but just know that Zen 2 is still in use, and it's on some of these mobile CPUs. So before you buy one, make sure you understand which architecture it is. It is a significant difference in the performance characteristics. We'll just share one of AMD's first-party slides for performance as well. So in this one, we see slight incremental improvements between the 4300U and the 5300U, the 4500U and the 5500U, and 4700U and 5700U. Again, the 5300U, 5700U, and 5500U are all Zen 2. So IPC uplift and frequency gains are going to be more limited than with Zen 3. The 4600U, 5600U, and 4800U versus 5800U show a larger single-threaded performance gain, and that's where you start seeing Zen 3 kick in. Now, as of right now, back to the desktop stuff, I just checked in the middle of filming here. There's no coverage yet of the OEM-only non-X parts, unfortunately. So AMD hasn't provided us any information. Couldn't find any that anyone else had gotten from AMD, and at this point, we're waiting to see what they are. Because they're OEM only, AMD probably thinks that it's not that important to disclose the frequencies. The core counts we can probably assume are the same, but the frequencies would be like nice to know, and the TDP would be nice to know. I'm assuming 65 watts, but anyway, it's OEM only, so they didn't talk about that. It'd be nice to know though, just because the OEM only parts often do find their way into the non-OEM market, and it might give us an idea of what AMD's plans are for the later 5000 series CPUs. Now, as for the new GPUs, all we really know is that AMD will have them. The company didn't get into specifications of any note, and it almost seemed like a throwaway line to either hide from backlash about shortages and bury the lead, or to preempt NVIDIA's immediate tailing announcement that was hosted right after AMD's. So that's it for the AMD keynote. Unbelievably boring. There was some interesting product stuff in there. AMD, don't do this. You're burying like actual specs with so much fluff. This isn't just like the gamer audience. If you look at the chat log during that that presentation, I wrote down a timestamp too. If you look at 50 minutes and 40 seconds or thereabouts, right around when I posted a comment in the live chat, it's nonstop up until I say something. It was nonstop people saying boring, snooze fest, yawn, stuff like that. And you know, it's not just because the gamer audience wants video games and killing and shooting things, which I'm sure is what AMD's takeaway will be. Even I'm sure the investor audience found that one particularly boring. So AMD is just not, I don't know, they were off their game for this one. But that doesn't matter too much. It's the product that matters, except not many people are going to actually know what the takeaway was from this keynote. It's like Intel's, where Intel wouldn't shut up about AMD's product and never once, actually once, I take that back, one time in the whole presentation named its own product. And the rest of the time it said the word comp. So it's kind of like that, where people aren't going to take away the actual news. They're just going to take away that they were bored watching people talk about pandemics, working from home, and how computers are great for that. And I don't know. I have a lot more I want to say, but it's very vulgar and I can't. So that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more. There's a little bit of news in there. Hopefully it's helpful. Sorry for all the opinion stuff, but this was a total waste of time, and I would like to not see this very frequently. So now, speaking of a waste of time, I am off to watch the NVIDIA keynote, and hopefully it will be more useful, and then we'll cover that one. See you in the next video. Subscribe for more. Goodbye.